we are back. Welcome back to This Old Empire. We're still working on the Kevin Holmes 323 project for a COM-8 frame. So right now, you can see I've got one of the legs laying here. It is the back side, this is the front side, or the exterior, this is the interior. And I've gone ahead and cut out one of my templates. It just lays over this, just to help orient everyone before I back up. So this is my forward facing, front facing of the droid. I go buttons forward, so that's how I know this extra screw mark, screw hole is for the forward portion. So knowing that, that means this is the forward portion. And so this goes on like there. And why? This bolt goes on the forward portion. So this leg and this bolt marry up to each other. Okay? So bolt needs to go through that part. Alright, so we're just going to kind of get this centered in here and get it pretty doggone close. Doesn't have to be perfect, because what we're going to end up doing is we will enlarge it as necessary. But this is just to give us about a little outline. There we are. Now we've already repeated this process on the other leg. As you can see, it has the matching mark, but this is for the left leg. Alright, so the next big step that we're going to do is we're going to use the drill press again, and we're going to go through and we're going to cut this out. Now what this is going to do is just going to put about 4 or 5 rough holes. They're going to match up. So we're going to put about 4, maybe 5 holes in there. And that's still going to leave some edges for that. Now what that means is then we're going to come back with our Dremel and possibly cutting disc or grinder, and we're going to work our way down, get nice, smooth, very easy. We want to make sure there's no friction going in and out, and that that bolt, the carriage will have no problem sliding through there. So with that, we'll come right back. I'll spare you having to watch the drill press work, and we'll bring it back when we're on the Dremel work. We'll see you right back. Alright, so welcome back. As you can see, we've gotten 4 holes pushed through with the drill press, and as we expect with the drill press, it's never going to be completely clean or perfect. So I've got my trusty Dremel and cutting disc, and away we go. Alright, we're going to check our template here real quick. Alright, that looks pretty doggone good. Same width. Spacer. No issues whatsoever. We got about 1/8 of an inch on each side, so that hole will work. Alright, so now that we got our hole cut, it's a perfect match for our template. One of the things that I wanted to show is that, so when you got these COM-8 frames, they came with one of these lag bolts. It has a nice little screw head plus a nice chamfered shaft. Now the challenge is these don't actually go inside those bolt holes anymore because the threads are too small. So these bolts, the plastic washers, the metal washers, the spacers, and the nylon lock nuts, you don't need them anymore. So just go ahead, find a good Ziploc type bag, put them in there, and send them to Hot Wing on the junkyard, because these will do you no good anymore. So what you do need to get I've got Kevin's instructions here. You do want to make sure that you get some 1/2 inch 13 by 1 inch bolts. Now all that's going to do, it's going to be enough to come through the inner portion of this leg and go through the exterior port of the thread and the inner part of the thread. There's actually 2 plates inside this hub, and so it lets you bind into both of those. That's very important to give it the strength. Okay, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and repeat this process on the other leg, and we're going to get this cleaned up, and when we come back we'll have both sides done. See you in a few minutes. Alright, and welcome back to This Old Empire. When we last left off, we were going through and opening up these channels for the bolt to go through in order to do the 232 mechanism. As you can see, it's a nice clean opening right through our paint. And while we were off, I went ahead and temporary placed fit one of the leg mount brackets inside of here, and it has the 232 pivot mechanism. Now, there's something important we need to talk about these. So, based on these, there are 2 different ways they can come in, and if you initially read Kevin's documentation, and he and I have talked about it, what you need to know is he talks about this really cool cable channel in there. However, if you look at the picture he has on there, the cable channel is on this side. What that means, and what Kevin's going to adjust, is each one of these brackets, there is a left and there is a right, and it does matter which one goes in. Easy way to remember, the cable channel that Kevin made inside his system needs to go to the front of the droid. So if this is the front facing side based on our buttons forward hole, there is where it goes. Alright, so here's why it's important. This is the opposite legs channel mechanism, and as you can see, it has a nice pivot mechanism. Now, if you were to stick this in here, and we're just going to rest it on top because that's all you really need to see. Our pivot hole is over here where that bolt's going to go through, and it's going to rotate right through here. Okay, if you were to do that, you're going to see, boom, in order for it to get in the very first position, it is hitting on this corner. And if you were to try to go down farther, it binds through this entire side, and then you get this pivot point which is now hitting inside the aluminum on this side. So you would need to actually cut through this side in order to make this piece work. And it's going to be binding the whole way. And in order to get it all the way down, you now see this part, it now has to stick out. It's a great indicator that you have these reversed. Now, the way this should look is on the other leg, the pivot point will be on this side. When you see, it sits nicely. It's going to be able to push as such, and it's going to do the rotate just like that. So it never actually goes outside of the point. Nothing binds, no binding points here, nothing here, nothing's going to come beyond. So that was one of the easy things. Now, highly recommend, if you get these one off the bat, just go ahead and put a right and a left on there. So this is the left leg. I'm just going to go on this side. So we've already got an L marked on that one. We're just going to go ahead and put an R on this one, just so we remember. It's really easy to get them mixed up, and when you've got it all bolted on there and you're in a hurry, next thing you know, you're going to be frustrated trying to figure out why don't these linkages match up. Let's get this one out of the way. Alright, so one of the important things, as you know, when we took off those lock nuts that were in here, that were press fit in, so these are just the normal buttons, screws that go into the ankle and through the ankle spacer and into this side. So this metal plate holds everything. Now, we want to make sure that when we take these screws out, this plate doesn't go anywhere. So Kevin has provided, we'll use this other one again, an 832 hole right in the center right here. So here are your normal 1/4 20 bolts that go in here, the flatheads go on those four, normal that you would find on your ankle. He's added this additional 8/32 hole. Now that means we need to put a hole in our ankle. Well, not our ankle, our leg. So we're going to go ahead and mark this hole with a pencil, and then we will go ahead and do a center punch on it. Now the reason I like to do this pencil hole in addition to that center punch is sometimes, the center punch, if it's not the same size as the hole, it tends to wander just a smidge. So want to be able to see the majority aspect of it. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what size for an 8/32? Well, I have a tap set, so I fully intending on tapping this side of the screw hole so it has more of the leg to grab onto. So we go to my handy dandy tap set, and you go for an 8/32. I need a size 29 drill bit in order to have 75% threading. So with 75% threading, we already have number 29 on the drill press, and we're going to pop this off real quick. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pause, and we're going to come back and do that. While we're off, we're going to use this camphor so we can get it nice and flat on this side. So we're going to go ahead and do that side as well while we have it on the drill press, and that will get it so that these screws fit completely flush with the aluminum. We don't want them to rise up at all. So when we come back, we'll have all that done. We'll see you in just a few minutes. Alright, so welcome back. We found a typo in Kevin's instructions. He's referencing that he uses an 8/32 hole in the center of this. It's not. It is a 10/32. Matched up by running my 10/32 through the center hole, and it fits perfectly. So we had to increase the hole by a size number 19 drill bit, and then we had no problem running our tap for an 8/32. Goes right in, and then our screw, we had countersunk it, get it down so it's flush. See, nice smooth action, no binding, no grinding, and it's perfectly smooth. So that is ready to go. We are now ready to mount the ankle, or the pivot joint inside. So we're just going to take this, and again remember, channel front, just going to kind of line these up, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to run this screw in backwards, kind of keep everything in place. And that holds it in place, so we can flip it over, and we can line this up. The important thing, missing a button screw, right in front of me. Towels blowing around. Alright. Bring that up. Brings that one up. Those are going to line up nicely. Let's just put the extra ones in just to make sure. I'd rather fix it now than deal with it later. So we'll just make sure all of these fit in without any binding. That one goes in nice and smooth. And oops. So all 4 of those button screws went on without a hitch. So that's good. That means our hole is aligned well. We're going to take this 10 by 32nd screw out. We're going to flip it over. Now we're going to put it in its correct hole right here. Imperial's on patrol, keeping my community safe. Right. That's there, nice and tight. Alright, now we're just going to leave just those 2 button screws in. It's always useful just have a little extra strength, but the nice thing is that it's all in position for it to do its movement. Now, this is where Kevin has repeatedly said this is going to cause me anguish and grief, frustration and pain. Just by looking at it, I can tell he's right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other leg, and when we come back, we'll be ready to go ahead and put this other assembly in there, and we'll let you watch that. Alright, see you right back. Alright, so welcome back. So one of the things that I wanted to show you is originally when we cut these, we had them flat. However, when you think about it, when it's going in there, when it slides in, I forget the best way to show you. When it goes in like this, you want it to be flush with the inside, which means it's on about a 45-degree angle. So we went back and we cut all 4 prongs off on a 45-degree angle, rounded the edges off, beveled them so they're nice clean fits. Just drops right in, it's good to go, and it's completely flush with the inside. And once again these cool down, because these are still a bit toasty from our last little grinding session, we'll go ahead and get those cooled down, Loctite, and put them back inside the underarm details, or the underarm pockets, and we'll be good to go. Next up for us, we need to go ahead, and now that we've got this bolt, we need to go to the highest position. We're going to drill our hole right there. Okay? So stick around, we'll be right back. Thanks. Alright, welcome back. So what we did is we got ahead and got our 2 ankle details on. It was really easy. I don't know if you noticed, we use, again, hex screws, which in trying to get into these little tiny places can be a pain. I highly recommend these extended socket sets that have the hex on there. It is actually the perfect length to reach down inside there. You can use a socket wrench, tighten those, untighten those. Super easy, no frustrations. Just a little tidbit I thought I'd pass on. Okay, so the other thing that we have done is we went ahead and... So the next major step that we talked about that we need to do is we needed to go through and at the apex of this position, we needed to put a pilot hole all the way through to the front facing side of the leg, center of this position, so that it starts our pilot hole. So we went ahead and used the drill press, and since this is kind of challenging and there was no real way to get a camera in there, so what we basically did is we went ahead and put the pivot mechanism that we just finished reinstalling in at the apex position, and then centered it with the drill press, very lightly locked in position, got it centered, moved the bracket out of the way. You do not, I repeat, do not drill through the existing hole that Kevin has there. That is a perfect way to destroy it. It will not handle the drill bit going through it. So once you have the center hole, lift up on the drill press. I really recommend you guys use a drill press. Don't use a handheld drill. What you're gonna get is that handheld drills is just gonna move around no matter how hard you think how well you think you're doing it. A drill press is gonna do the job better and cleaner. And once you get that bracket set out of the way, you just push right on through. And there we have a nice pilot hole, and we've already done that on both legs. Okay, the key to remember with the pilot hole is that this bracket, or this hole that we're now enlarging, alright? So we don't want to encroach onto either of these screw holes that holds the horseshoe on, okay? So we're going to have to be kind of careful, and that's going to kind of set the outer diameter of where we're going to go. Now, because we've been moving this around and doing other work, our previous pencil marks have kind of faded just a little bit. So this doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just get us close enough to where we can remember where our line is at, where we don't want to go past. And there we go. So, the important thing then, put the extension on. Alright, so what we did is we just went ahead and marked the size of the hole, the minimum that it has to be. Now, why is that important? I apologize, I was concentrating on what I was doing. So you want to make sure that, you want to kind of figure out, so you know that this line is the minimum, that if you do it to this exact line, it's going to be a tight fit to get this socket down in there. If you're going past this line, now you're going past your horseshoe. So now you got some kind of play to figure out how far you need to go. So we know this is a 9/16. So let's go ahead and, where did I put it? There they are. Pardon my reach. Alright, so I'm a real fan of these kind of expansion bits. So it's an easy way to get a nice clean hole. We'll put it on the drill press, we'll just kind of walk it down. It has a whole bunch of segregated steps that will basically kind of walk it in there. I guess you can read it, really see. So one of those is 9/16. So where it's actually stopped is actual 9/16. So at that point, we would want to go a little lower. So you can see that this is going to get down to about 7/8. Might like to have that a little bit wider. Let's see, what do we have? I think it's about the biggest size I have. We'll go ahead and do one of these. We'll try it out with this expansion bit, probably get it to 7/8 is what I'm kind of aiming for. By 7/8, that should still be well inside. I would probably like to see it actually get to 1 inch. I think that would be fantastic if we could get it there. So we'll be right back. Alright, so we're back. We went ahead and did the drill press. We just did it on one leg. Like I said, wanted to see what it was kind of look like. So went ahead and put our 9/16 socket on, and that is not a lot of play. So I have a feeling what we're going to do, and I'll bring it up here so you can see the lines a little better. So you can see here, this is the additional screw hole that I've added so that I can do buttons front, so I can actually use the button as a locking mechanism right there. So that's kind of my maximum boundary. Here you see the total max. This would actually go to the edge of the foot shell, or not, this correction. Wow, foot shell. Foot shell's way down here. No, so the horseshoe. So we just broke into the circle a little bit, not too bad. We don't want to come too much closer to that, so we probably want to probably go about half the distance to that screw hole, which will put us right about there. I think that would give us enough room. Alright, so welcome back to another episode of This Old Empire. Where we last left off, we were enlarging the bolt connection piece, this piece right here, that connects the upper leg to the 323 mechanism. Now, originally when we were doing this, we were starting with a 7/8 stepper bit. I went to Lowe's and I picked up a 1 1/8 stepper bit. Worked a lot better. I've actually provided some video of using the drill press to enlarge these holes. So you can see here's our normal 4 leg bolt connector holes, and here's our larger hole that we added in so we could go ahead and get our 9/16 socket through cleanly with plenty of room. Gives us room to maneuver. If we had to, we could get some small pliers or a magnet in there. You know, I still haven't decided whether I'm going to square these sides off. It's not critical, but I may just do that just to make it a little easier to access, you know, because I have a little bit more wiggle room. Not really sure yet. We'll figure that out as we kind of get there. That's an easy fix. The other thing you might remember is that I haven't edited all the video yet, so this may or may not be in there. These leg bolt holes, which is the opposite side, this is where it actually goes through and connects to the leg hub back here, were not quite large enough for these 1/2 inch by 13 by 1 inch hex bolts. Now, all I did is I used a 1/2 inch drill bit and just popped through these real quick, maybe just a little wiggle. I just used a standard hand drill to do that. Really what it comes down to is because I did automotive painting, I did not mask off the insides of these holes. So some of the base primer, and then so it was base gray primer, and then going into the white coat, and then a little clear coat made it down there. So it made it just a little bit more snug. Now, as you can see, it goes into the holes with little to no effort, which will be fine for connecting. So perfect. So that's done. We did both legs. Both the bolt holes as well as the attachment hole. Losing paper towels. So we'll go ahead through and take care of that. So we're good, we're set. We're gonna clean up the leg, and as you can see, remember this is the front side because there's my horseshoe buttons forward lock nut hole, so I can basically lock the horseshoe into place. So I'm with about 1/8 of an inch of that hole. I really don't want to get too much closer. The left leg got a smidge closer to it. I'm not too worried. This is thick aluminum, and it's only really there just to provide stability, so it's not a whole bunch of strength that has to be in that position, just enough to be able to grab on. And worst case, if I had to, I could reverse. I could make the hole lower, and it would be right about here for the other button. So not a huge concern. Again, I'm not out, jury's out on these pieces. It may just be easier to clean it up, and we'll get after that. All right, we'll be right back.